We often look at athletes and say, well, that guy is not ready for this fight, that guy's not ready for this game, that guy's not ready to play. But when this guy got into the ring, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter if it was kicks, boxing, mixed martial arts, or especially the four-rounders. He was ready, and a lot of people went up against him, and he found himself not only flat, they were flattened by the man they called Butterbean. Now, Eric Scott Esch, nicknamed Butterbean, is currently retired from pro boxing, mixed martial arts, and professional wrestling. He's one of the few athletes in the history of modern sports to hold multiple heavyweight titles over multiple combat genres, including, again, pro wrestling, pro boxing, and mixed martial arts. He is also a television personality, having appeared in several programs and being referenced by many others. I think in the 2000s, he was word of mouth the most popular athlete of his era, and I tell you why. His fights were required watching because if you've never seen Butterbean before, let me explain this to you, ladies and gentlemen. 6 feet tall, no neck. His best weight was probably 380, but he might have tipped 420, 430. Basically, with one of the greatest right hands in boxing history. If you hit you with it, it was like being hit not only by a sledgehammer, by a gold brick, and his hands turned to gold because literally he was one of the highest paid, combination fighters of his era. Now, he got his start in Tough Man contests in 1994, which were around a myriad of areas around Canada and States at the time, very, very popular. He went on to capture the World Athletic Association heavyweight crown and the IBA Super Heavyweight Championship. He also lost to former world champion Larry Holmes in his first fight lasting more than 4 rounds, so he fought legitimate fighters as well. From 2003, he regularly fought as a kickboxer and mixed martial artist, notably in K1 and the Pride Fighting Championships. Now, Butterbean's combined professional fight record is 97, 24, and 5 with 65 knockouts and 9 submissions. Now, the kickboxing record 3 and 4, the mixed martial arts record 17, 10, and 1. Now, born in Atlanta, Georgia. But at the age of 4, him and his family moved to St. John's, Michigan, beautiful community, only to move again at 11 years old to Jasper, Alabama, with his family. He had a difficult childhood as his mother died when he was 8, and he was frequently bullied at school for being overweight. Now, while decking floors for manufactured homes in the Southern Energy Homes plant in Addison, Alabama, his colleagues dared him to enter a local Tough Man contest with training in Bay City, Michigan. He won the tournament and began his career in fight sports. Now, where he got the King of the Four Rounders started pretty much in Texarkana, Arkansas in the early 1990s and went on to become 5-time World Tough Man Heavyweight Champion with a record of 56 and 5 with 36 knockouts. He received the nickname Butterbean when he was forced to go on a diet consisting mostly of chicken and butter beans in order to meet the Tough Man 400-pound or 181-kilogram weight limit under the New Age trainer Prose Buell, better known as a Better Buell. Now, he made his professional boxing debut on October 15, 1994, beating Tim Daniels by decision in Birmingham. He soon developed a cult following and became known as King of the Four Rounders. Speaking of his popularity in a 2008 interview with Boxing Insider, Esch stated, "It took off pretty quick. My second pro fight was on national TV. It didn't happen like that. Normally you get 15, 20 fights, and then you get a TV fight unless you're very fortunate." Now, Tyson, for example, his second pro fight wasn't on TV. He probably had 5 or 6, 7 fights before it got on TV. Me, my second pro fight was televised. It was on a Jed Hearns undercard, then a couple more fights and I'm on TV again, and every fight since then was televised. It just don't happen like that. I probably had more televised fights than any world champion out there, and I tend to agree. Butterbean fights were sense to believe. We have a terminology in the North Shore of New Brunswick, don't go to the fridge. If give an example, the Tyson Marvis Frazier Jr. Fight and Marvis Frazier fight, and that's what we're talking about. Now, when Esch ran up a string of wins, mostly by knockout, he was eventually stopped in 2 rounds by Mitchell Rose on December 15, 1995. Now, Butterbean went on the road around the United States, winning 51 consecutive matches, including against a former heavyweight contender and title challenger Peter McNeely, who fought Tyson. While the majority of his opponents were technically limited club-level fighters early in his career, he did move up the ranks to win the IBA Super Heavyweight Championship on April 12, 1997, with a second-round technical knockout of Ed White at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas that year. He made 5 successful title defenses before relinquishing his champion in 2000. Now, after his 5-year winning streak was brought to an end with a majority decision loss to heavyweight Billy Zumbrun in August 2001, he fought his first 10-rounder against 52-year-old former world heavyweight champion Larry Holmes at the Norfolk Scope Center in Norfolk, Virginia, on July 27, 2002. Now, while Holmes won a unanimous decision, Esch was credited with a controversial knockdown in the final round, which was later shown in film replays as not being a knockdown, as no punch had landed and it was a slip, with Holmes only reeling against the ropes. This is one of the only 3 fights in a 109-fight career that was scheduled for Esch to fight more than 4 rounds. Now, when he went into the sport of kickboxing, he didn't have the best result. Again, like I had just mentioned, did that for a few years, but he also ended up in professional wrestling in many venues. Now, he appeared twice in the WWF, what they call Universe, professional wrestling events, competing in boxing matches both times. On December 7, 1997, at Degeneration X, in your house pay-per-view event, he defeated former Golden Gloves champion Mark Mero via disqualification in a work match. However, 15 months later, Butterbean defeated WWF Brawl for All champion Bart Gunn, former World Tag Team champion, in a legitimate shoot fight at WrestleMania 15 on March 28, 1999, knocking out his opponent out in 34 seconds and pretty well ending Bart Gunn's coherent career in the WWF. Now, in 2009, he returned to professional wrestling on the independent circuit, where he defended Trent Acid for the Pro Wrestling Syndicate heavyweight title on May 29, 2009 in Garfield, New Jersey. Now, on June 10, 2009, Butterbean defeated One Man Crew and Omega Khan at the BJCC in Birmingham at a wrestling event for charity. Nearly a year later, he dropped the title to Kevin Matthews on May 9, 2010. He also wrestled for the infamous Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and on April 1st, 2011, Butterbean teamed with Officer Adam Hatter in a tag team against One Man Crew and WWE Hall of Famer Brutus the Barber Beefcake in a charity wrestling event taped for an episode of Big Law, Deputy Butterbean, a reality show which aired on Investigative Discovery. Now, on March 31st, 2012, he defeated Cliff Compton at the event WrestleRama Guyana in Georgetown, Guyana. Now, Pride Fighting Championships, he was there for 2 years, and eventually continued to bring up, have a lot of key wins. Now, in his later career, he weighed in about 405, 400 pounds, and Butterbean was just as efficient in Pride. Now, later career, he fought in the Cage Rage World Heavyweight Championship in a non-title bout in July 14, 2007. He also fought for K1, fought for EBF, and again did the independent professional debut in March 28, 2009 at the ImageCon event. Now, again, so much to his career that I could go over, but I just want to touch on a little bit with the fights he had. He has a strong connection right now to New Brunswick, my home province in Canada, because he won the Elite One MMA super heavyweight title in New Brunswick on May 7, 2011 by taking out Dean Story, a very talented pugilist over the years in the Maritimes, via TKO with punching, via punching in round 2. Now, at the time, he was also fighting later on for Instinct MMA and Prestige Fighting Championship, or Prestige Fighting, losing 2 fights in Fort McMurray and Montreal. So he was, just to recap the different countries he's fought in, and it's quite an impressive tally. Now, he's fought in again New Zealand, all over the United States, Queensland, Australia, of course, fighting in all the major competition areas across the world. But when he went international, like I said, he fought in Seoul, Honolulu, Japan, some key fights there. Again, Canada, Poland, London, England, of course, and some tremendous fights over the years. But every possible place there was a boxing venue in the United States, he fought there. And again, fighting over a number of countries. But I want you to go on YouTube and see some of these key knockouts. Now, there was always a question that maybe Butterbean was going to take on Mike Tyson. And when Larry Holmes decided to take him on, there was some question. I would love to see a fight between Tyson and Butterbean, exhibition over 4 rounds. And you're probably saying, why 4 rounds? Well, if you ever seen Butterbean, a person of that size and that thickness is he's not fat per se. He looks like a Marvel comic book character, like one of the mutants in X-Men 3, X-Men United, the Blob. He's a comic book looking fighter, but don't ever underestimate, because just like an alligator, they're not moving, and all of a sudden they'll cut you in half. But Butterbean, for me, is one of the most, just like Mike Tyson was important for that type of fighting. Butterbean is just as important. I'll tell you why. He is the link between MMA to all this kickboxing. He is the link. People got into crossing over through the success of Butterbean. Now you see it all over the time. You got wrestlers doing MMA, you got crossover fighters, you got boxers becoming kickboxers, stuff like that. But like I said, overall, for the talent he had, he did the most with his talent of any athlete of the last quarter century, in my opinion. And if you disagree, let me know. But when you say Butterbean to a boxing fan, they're not making fun, ladies and gentlemen. They're saying, oh, Butterbean, you got to watch these fights. So watch these fights, come back, tell me what you think. And if you like to, pass this podcast on as my tribute to Butterbean, just remember, no 15-minute podcast is going to cover all the success. We just go over some of the basic highlights, and I wanted to stay with the boxing, because he would have a report on the news every night during that win streak, the big win streak we talked about. And it was amazing. And the highlights fit because he would knock out his opponent between 15 and 40 seconds. And if you know your boxing coverage or your highlight coverage back in the 90s and 2000s, he fit the bill. He was the first internet sensation for an athlete, because the internet pretty well started when he rose, and it continues to celebrate his legacy over the last quarter century. Thanks for listening. Bye.